All right, guys, thanks for coming back to the show today, King Ugly Crew. Today, we are going to be talking about car crashes. Some of them epic, some of them probably not so much. I think what we're going to start off with, and we're kind of going to leave Jason out of this one for this first little bit, because we're going to start off with how many times one of Mom's Jags got wrecked.
I can honestly say I've never wrecked one of Mom or Dad's cars.
You don't count.
Lucky
I think
you.
I probably
Agree.
wrecked the most.
Lucky you.
So I'll start, since I think I was the first one to wreck Mom's Jag. So me and Dad, I don't remember why, but he took me out for a drive. This is before I had my license. I was probably 15 at the time. And he just put the LT1 into the car. So we were driving around on back roads in Twin Falls, Idaho. And it was kind of stormy out, but, a little bit wet, nothing major. And we're driving down the road, and all of a sudden, I see two eyes right at me. Well, in my mind, I'm thinking cow. I swerve, and I put it right into the ditch, right down the whole side of the car. It's just literally sitting in the ditch. I believe Dane had to come pull us out with Dad's Chevy pickup.
Yep. I didn't have my license at the time either. I had to go drive and do it, pick it up. It's not, all of us, I think we were all driving by the time we were 12 anyway.
Yeah, I was driving my Studebaker, or one of the Studebakers at one time, all over that yard that we had. It was just like,
we drove ourselves to driver's ed.
Yep. Actually, it was funny because Dad was like, I am not getting up that early. You know how to drive. Get in that Studebaker out there, drive to driver's ed, and go through your driver's ed class. So yeah, I put it in the ditch, scratched it up. Come to find out, that cow was a cat, and Dad made sure he let me know.
Are you sure it wasn't a ghost from the last episode? Just jumped out and scared you?
Was not a ghost. It wasn't a telephone pole like Mom either.
Take out the cat. Cats lose.
Right.
Cows, on the other hand, cows win.
Yeah, exactly. I thought it was a cow. It was a cat. Dad was like, don't swerve. Don't swerve. Just hit it.
Must have been a pretty big cat.
No, we're not saying try to hit it. He's saying try not to hit it, but it's not worth getting people hurt for a cat.
Exactly. And luckily, me and Dad, it wasn't going fast enough that me and Dad, either of us got hurt, but, the Jag got pretty banged up. And
it was expensive.
It was an expensive fix, but it was, I think, also an excuse for Dad to get it painted.
Absolutely.
So, I think we'll probably pass it on to Dane, because he was the next one to wreck that Jag.
So I drove Dad's truck to work that day. To school. I believe I was a senior in high school at the time, 17 years old. And Dad needed the truck, so he came and traded me the Jag. So I usually parked at the church over right by the school, because I believe seminary was my last period, and that way I could just leave from the church and didn't have to go back to school. But so took the Jag. A friend of mine, Brenton Jurgensen, was in the car with me. And keep in mind, we put an LT1 motor in this. It was out of an Impala SS. Basically, like one of the Caprice Classic cop cars that they made cool looking in the early, mid-90s.
It was the Corvette motor of its day.
It was a 95, so it was OBD2.
It was 340 horse, wasn't it?
Something like that. It moved pretty well. I didn't even realize that Brent Jurgensen was the one with you.
Yep. It was either Jurgensen or Weaver, but I think it was Jurgensen, because I believe we had been playing basketball that day, and we left after playing basketball. I'm not positive. I don't remember for sure. This was 20-some years ago. I hate being able to say that. Anyway, so...
Old.
Yep.
Over 20 years ago.
It was like 23 years ago. Anyway, so we left the church, and I backed out, and the way that they had the parking assignments, they were like an angle. So in order to pull out and go back out to the street, I would have had to make like a 10-point turn. So I just backed out and went around the back of the church, and kind of went around and came out the other side from where I was parked. Well, I decided I was going to show off a little bit and went around.
Because it's an experience show.
Yeah, absolutely.
As you do.
And keep in mind, this is a heavy car. It's all metal. So it is... it's all independent suspension, front and back. It's a good handling car, but it's heavy.
Also, by this point, Dad had put a locker in it as well.
Yeah, so I decided I'm gonna, fishtail around the corner, going from the back of the church to the side before I left. So, I fishtailed it around this corner and drifted it around the corner pretty good. And when I went to straighten it back out, I was turning to the right. Well, it kicked back after I was done, kicked back to the left, and then I overcorrected, kicked back to the right, overcorrected, kicked back to the left, and at this point, I either chose to hit a car because of the way it was going, or chose to go through a fence. Well, I chose the fence. I figured that would do less damage.
It was like 40 feet of fence.
Yeah, it was like 40 feet of fence. And so I hit the fence. It was a wooden fence, and I remember a piece of wood went through the headlight, and
it was a 4x4 that went through the bucket of the headlight.
Yeah, and probably 3 feet up into the fender. So I mean, it just took out this fence. I guess Lonnon, you were coming home from Doug's house, or coming over to the church from Doug's
to get a ride home. Yeah, and I had walked around the corner right as this happened, so I had a completely different view of this. Yeah, so I saw him do his fishtail coming out, and then getting away from him, and then I saw it go through the fence, all 40 feet of it, and I was like, "Oh, Dad's gonna be pissed."
Yeah, and Lonnon, I believe you came right up to the car, and I think those were your first words.
Yeah, it's probably what I was thinking.
Yep, I don't remember if Dad had a cell phone then or not.
He did.
Okay. But I called Mom, and she said I had to call Dad. Well, Dad was at a dentist appointment.
Good old Dr. Rencher.
Dr. Rencher. Yep, great dentist name, Dr. Rencher.
That's about as good as Dr. Butcher being a surgeon.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Dr. Rencher was a great dentist, though.
He was.
Still,
he was
to
really
this day, my favorite dentist.
Yeah, and he was funnier than heck. And I'm sure the laughing gas helped, but he was a funny guy. Anyway, so I had to call Dad, and our bishop was actually in the church at the time, and this wasn't even the church that we had gone to. Well, he heard tires screeching, and so he came out and kind of chewed me out, and then...
Wait, which bishop was it?
Bishop Hansen.
Oh, okay.
It was our old bishop. I was probably 12. I think between when I was 12 to 14 or 15 years old.
Yeah.
He was our bishop. But anyway, and this was, a couple years later, but I still knew him really well. And he chewed me out and gave me the whole, I'm disappointed in you and I can't believe you did that. And so anyway, I get a hold of my dad. And my dad says, well, I'm in an appointment. I'll get there when I get there. And so cop showed up and I got a ticket, and Dad finally showed up 45 minutes later and comes over, looks at it, talks to the cop, comes over and says, well, you did it, so you deal with it. And he left. Oh, not before he said, out of all my children that I ever thought would do something like this, you were the last one I thought would do something like this. I am so disappointed in you. And that was that's the worst punishment you could ever give me, is for my dad to be disappointed in me. And, at that point.
That is heart-wrenching.
I did not know that he said that to you.
He came and said, out of all my children, I thought you'd be the last one to do this. And
yeah, he thought it was going to be me.
And you did it, so you deal with it. And he left, and that was it.
So what'd you do? How'd you get it out?
I just drove out. I pulled out. It wasn't like it was, I just drove it home. It was didn't still drivable.
So none of it went through the radiator. All the damage was on the right side of the car.
No, I was on the driver's side.
Oh, right, on the driver's side of the car. I apologize. But it was all fender, like that 4x4 that was pushed up into the fender. And, it was all damaged there. So it was still drivable.
Yep, and like
no
I said,
damage.
Keep in mind, this car is all metal. So it's not like it's, one of the fiberglass cars today that, piece would be hanging off everywhere. And I think there was some glass on the ground. I think there was some blinkered plastic on the ground. And other than that, everything was still on the car. It was still drivable. Matter of fact, I think we drove it for a long time before we got it fixed like that. We had to fix the headlight, obviously, but I believe none of the metal work got done until, and that was before it was painted as well. So I think that was another excuse for Dad to paint it.
And I remember using a slide hammer to pull it out. That's just one of my memories of Dad grabbing a slide hammer and yanking the fender.
Yeah, we had to drill a hole and then put the slide hammer in it and pull it out. But I think he just ended up replacing that whole fender anyway.
Yeah, that fender was not fixable.
Yeah, he just bought basically a donor car and fixed all that. But yeah, I got to work for my dad the entire summer without getting paid to pay for the car and pay for the fence. And that fence, it was amazing. It was only like $350 to fix 40 feet of fence.
Man, times have changed.
Not anymore.
No, Todd and I were talking today, and now this, keep in mind, we were talking about a block fence, but it's $15,000 for a block fence.
Why?
A block wall. Okay, that's what it costs.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
But yep, so that was my Jag experience. And then we actually got, Jurgensen and I, we were sophomores, and we had just gotten the motor put in it. We didn't even have wipers on it. And Dad let us take it to the prom, and I didn't have my license, so Jurgensen drove. And it rained that day quite a bit, but we had rain-exed it. And so Dad was just like, go over 50 miles an hour and clean off your windshield and slow back down. So it was a fun car. It was a really fun car, and it was beautiful. British racing green, like every Jaguar should be.
Yeah.
Well, not every
Yeah.
Jaguar.
Oh yeah, every Jaguar. Even
XK, the XKEs and stuff, some of them look great in red.
Yeah, I was going to say the E-Type in red is pretty gorgeous.
Agree.
Yeah, I'll try to get some of our pictures up online on our Instagram and Facebook page. That is at King Ugly Crew. And then if you guys want to email us with any suggestions, again, it's kinguglycrew@gmail.com.
And I think I'm going to interject and go, the next story should be more Jags, but we have a person also on here. It's Kyler. Kyler can kind of introduce himself real quick so that this random dude that keeps interjecting, we know who he is.
Hey everybody, I am that random dude. My name's Kyler. I've known the Jensens for about, 10, 11 years now. Definitely been a part of a few of these stories, and I'm super excited to kind of go over everything and kind of relive all these, not the funnest of moments, but they're fond memories now.
Yeah, this was actually, Lonnon, I think it was my junior year that when I wrecked it. I mean, and we're talking that was in 96. 95, 96. So, Case, how old were you in 95, 96? Like 5?
Yeah, no, I was 4 because I was born in 91. So
yeah, so I mean, these are like old stories. Lonnon and I are the old parts.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, it just, when you were talking about that entire thing, Lonnon, or Dane, having your best friend in the car or a friend in the car and just wanting to show off, I'm just keep looking at Kyler. I'm like, this sounds so familiar.
I've always
pretty
said you were
spot
just
on.
like me.
Yeah, apparently I did that almost to a T, but in a different car. I was not in the Jaguar, obviously. I got another story about that one. But me and Kyler, I had to go pick up a part from AutoZone to work on the car I was driving. Both of these cars that I was driving were Griffs. So I had to go pick up the part for the 95 Prelude we had.
Oh, the Prelude.
Oh, the Prelude.
No.
I missed that.
It was for my truck because we were going out to Pahrump to pick and we were bringing a trailer out there, and I didn't have the adapter, and so I was sending you to AutoZone because I didn't want to deal with it when I got home from work.
I totally forgot about that. Yeah, Kyler just said the same thing. He's like, hey, so the Prelude was down. I think we had a wheel bearing out. Go ahead, Baron.
Well, and to keep this in mind, this car that we haven't mentioned the name of yet, I had helped Griff pull the engine on it 3 times to figure out what was wrong with it, and I had only gotten to drive the car once, and it had bad brakes, so I couldn't even get in the car.
Well,
Get on
Like,
it.
get on
You
it.
couldn't get on.
Get on it, yeah. So let's just say it was a 95 Trans Am that had a centrifugal supercharger on it,
Yes,
right?
Pro
Am I saying
Charger.
it right? Pro Charger on it. So it was pushing about 550 horsepower to the wheels.
It's a 383 stroker LT1.
It was a monster. I mean, this thing was just fast.
Fuff, you still have that motor, right?
Yes, he does.
So I get in this car that I've never driven before. Griffey just jumps on and says, hey, be careful. Don't be stupid in it. And I was like, okay, no problem. I'll just drive down the road. So on the way back, we decided to kind of take the long way around just to enjoy the car a little more. We had the T-tops off and enjoying it.
It was a nice day. Like, do we have school that day, or was it just a weekend?
It was a weekend.
Yeah, it was a nice sunny day, chilling, great weather, happy as a clam.
Yeah, and so we were headed back to the house, and the road we were driving down kind of did an S-turn up and over a little hill, and this minivan, so going down this road, I went from first to second, and I was going to drop it into fourth, and I was like, nah, and I threw it into third and punched it, and by the time I get up and over the little crest area, and I see this minivan pull out in front of me, and there was no way I was going to stop, and I was doing probably 90 miles an hour down this 35-mile-an-hour road, and I didn't do anything. I just reacted and turned right to avoid hitting the car that was turning left to come across the street, and the next thing I know, because I blacked out, I don't remember exactly what happened. I woke up and I look over and there's a brick in Kyler's lap.
This is not a
Yeah,
brick.
we kinda-
This is
a brick
block.
or a cinder block?
Like a big old cinder block kind of guy. But yeah, we went up like a small little hill, went through someone's backyard brick wall, and luckily there was a giant palm tree there, because if not, we would have also gone swimming that day.
Yeah, it would have been a worse day.
Yeah.
It was already bad enough.
It was crazy how the car ended up landing too, because the car itself actually ended up landing. So it hit the tree so hard that it picked up the back end and twisted it so it landed basically. So the car was parked behind a tree. So the tow truck had a difficulty getting it out, but this thing was destroyed. The entire front end was completely ruined, and oh man, it was just nuts.
I truly don't understand how we came out unscathed. No bruises, no scratches, perfectly fine. Still blows my mind to this day.
God.
Divine intervention.
Absolutely.
So let me get this straight, because this is the way I've understood the story: is you went through the brick wall, the block wall, the cinder block wall, and you landed on a palm tree, and the palm tree kept you from going into the pool.
I wouldn't say on the palm tree. I say into the palm tree. I mean, this thing was probably 6 feet wide.
It was a thick boy, that's for sure.
That it was.
So what I'm thinking, it wasn't like a 2-foot palm tree that was leaning over the pool.
No.
It was, you were on top of this tree, one of the big pineapple ones, right?
Yeah, one of the big giant pineapple ones. They were just giant on the bottom. So that's what stopped us.
Okay, gotcha. That's crazy.
Yeah, and so it was right down the street from the house. I called Griff right afterwards, and I'm like, Griff, I just wrecked the Trans Am. And he's like, are you joking? Like, he didn't understand that I was serious for a second.
I didn't know how you could. In my head, I couldn't grasp, if you turn traction control on, what you could do to crash. That was probably where I was at on that.
So, yeah,
He had traction control on?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because you didn't come out of control. You just turned right through the fence.
Yeah.
There was a speed factor involved in that.
Yes.
Yeah,
And we were
you're
going.
saying he was doing like 85 or 90.
So the cops actually came out and did a test. It was 72 miles an hour. They clocked me actually doing it, if I remember correctly.
On stock tires and stock brakes. That wasn't accounting for 12-inch rear tires and 10-inch fronts and aftermarket slotted and drilled rotors all the way around.
Yeah, I was going way too fast.
You're saying it was probably significantly faster.
Well, Case, after many months, came and asked me, he said, what was the top of second and into third? I said, the top of second was 80, and into third means you were probably exceeding 100.
Definitely. I can guarantee.
I never got to drive that car.
Yeah, I ruined that for everyone that wanted to drive that vehicle.
I drove it once.
Thanks, Case.
I remember Griff calling me because I'm on my way back from Idaho in one of our Mercedes, and he's all like, "So guess what Case did?" And I'm all like, "I have no idea." He's like, "Drove my car through a wall."
Griff, didn't you steal that thing? I mean, you got there for like $6,000, didn't you?
$1,500.
Shut
It was traded in.
up. Oh my
And they were going to.
God.
Yes, with
With
that
that
engine.
engine in it?
Oh yeah, as it sat. I put another 1,000 into it, trying to figure out the issues with it. I put a clutch into it, and I had to figure out the issue, I think, why it got traded in. But yeah, I mean, I stole that car and got it for a really good deal.
I mean, we pulled the engine out of it 2 times, Griff.
Just
we got
once.
really good at pulling the cab
We
off.
just did it once. We pulled the heads because we were trying to figure out what the engine was, and then we ended up pulling the engine and figuring out what the issue was. And this is after I'd figured out all the issues on it. And this is when Case had, I had been around diesels, and so diesels had a torque, and so this car didn't feel fast to me. I knew it was fast. I drag raced Dad on his Warrior, and I moped Dad on his Warrior, so I knew it was.
And the
quick.
Warrior's fast.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 1700cc V-twin.
Right, and so to me though, it never felt fast. Like it always was like, okay, yeah, I guess it's okay. I did one drag race in it against a Grand National, but I don't know what was done in the Grand National, so I couldn't have told you it was fast. But it was enough that the guy didn't expect this Trans Am to get up and go.
Well, and you had new tires on it when Case put it through the wall, right? Because when I drove it, they were slippery tires.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They were brand
I
new.
just put brand new tires on it. Like it was hooking hard. Dad always said it was fast. I guess I hadn't been around gas vehicles enough to know that it probably was a 600 horsepower plus car.
Yeah, but you're talking supercharged. I mean, think of how much you pick up with forced induction and torque. I mean, you're picking up a lot of torque that you wouldn't have with naturally aspirated.
Yeah, but keep in mind it was a centrifugal, so it's a little different.
Yeah.
And it was stroked out to a 390 as well.
Yeah. I'm sad I never got to drive it.
Yeah, and one of
So am
the
I.
crazy parts about that story is, again, it was a T-top, and the bricks that were in my lap ended up like smashing in a corner of the T-top, which was like inches away from my head. And again, no clue how came out unscathed, but kind of super happy I did.
Guardian Angel
we are
is what
too.
that one was.
We're glad
Absolutely.
Case is not in jail for manslaughter.
Yeah.
I agree.
And Case didn't even get a ticket.
No, I didn't.
What?
Yeah, the cop just let me off because he didn't know what to write me up for because I didn't do any damage except for the property damage.
He's like, it's already a bad day for you. This is gonna suck.
Yes, I got.
I'm not
really,
gonna make it any worse.
I
huh?
got really lucky with the cop. I got.
That block
Not even
wall.
speeding
yeah,
That
ticket
block
or
wall
anything?
cost you a ton
No.
too, didn't it?
Yeah, I was actually right before I got married. I got pulled in for another court case. I was having to go to court the next day that they finally settle on it. But Griffey's insurance luckily covered the entire bill. But I was tied up in legal stuff for 5-6 years after that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. That's kind of crazy.
Yep. Oh, trust me. We talked about it.
Absolutely. All right, Griff. So you've got a Jag story because I think you were the next one to wreck a Jag of Mom's, correct?
Yes, my story's very boring though. So and let me preface this because most of them have driven Mercedes, and so they all understand. You'll pipe in. Mercedes the way that you have to drive these old diesel Mercedes that we had is you waited till the very last second to have to brake because to get back up to speed was everything they got to do it.
Or on to boost.
Yes, and the brakes were really good.
Some of us didn't have
Yeah,
boost.
but it was really good brakes ultimately, and Baron and Case will attest
Great
to good
brakes.
brakes.
At great breaks.
Right, and so mine was pretty boring. I was coming home from a fireside, driving my mom's car, and every car accident I have pretty much been into in a car has been because I had driven a Mercedes like I do, and I slammed on the brakes too late on someone that was trying to turn into a gas station, and I rear-ended them. It wasn't. I mean, no cops, no nothing like that. Like it was a fender bender.
And to preface this car was Mom. It was like the first one that we had bought in a long time. It was a 95 XJ6.
No, that was
XK8,
the
wasn't it?
XJ6.
No,
The next
it was
one.
XJ6. It was black.
Yeah,
I
it was
didn't
a
know about
black. It
this
was
one.
the black one.
Oh, the
Casper had
No,
it.
no,
Phantom
no.
Claw?
No, Casper had this one. Casper bought it from Mom and Dad, even after I wrecked it, because it wasn't a bad enough wreck that it made it undrivable. And Casper drove it around for 2.5 years after Mom sold it to him.
Gotcha. I was up in Idaho at the time, so I don't think I.
You may not
was
have
around
seen
for
it.
that one.
This was the Eco Energizer time, right before Eco Energizer.
Have we introduced Casper yet? Sorry, I know
No,
the past couple weeks. I
Casper
don't know.
hasn't been on.
Nope.
No,
And
Casper is our sister's husband.
actually, his name
Tatiana's
is
husband.
Aaron. He's just Casper, like as white as the friendly ghost. Yep.
He's awesome.
Yep.
Okay, so Baron or Case, which one you had Mom Jag next? I think it was Baron probably.
I was the next one. So I had the XJR, which is a supercharged V8. It was a 98. We had it for a couple of years. And I was off, it was like 9 or 10 o'clock at night. I'm hanging out with some friends. And we all went out to this diner and got some food. And I was dating this gal at the time. And
Was that Jenny?
We're all leaving. No, that wasn't Jenny. Jenny was in high school. No,
Whoa.
I was dating.
Right, agreed.
She'd never shut up.
Oh, I don't remember. What was her name? There were so many.
Move
There
on.
were so
Renee?
many.
All right.
Mhm.
I'm sorry. So, yeah, Renee. So I was showing off, and we pull up this light, and it just sprinkled. I mean, just
Which, real
the
quick,
tiniest little bit
In
of rain.
Vegas,
but the
after it sprinkles,
Yeah, explain
it's
Vegas.
like the slickest pavement you've ever been on in your life because all the oil gets pushed to the surface, and then it's just like riding in an oil slick.
Yes, it's crazy.
Yeah, so it had just sprinkled, and it's probably 10 or 11 o'clock at night at this point. And I'm making a left-hand turn.
Yes, because I remember exactly when this happened. We were at Griffith's house when you called me when it happened. It's on Warm Springs and Stephanie is where it happened.
Yeah, no, I think, okay, yeah. So Orange Springs, Stephanie. So I'm making a left-hand turn, and I just floor it, because I'm like, let's have some fun with this stupid car that I never do anything with. And I just slid right and nailed the curb. I mean, like right up on top of it, bent the lower subframe. No body damage by some miracle, but like totally
Broke both wheels, didn't you?
I did break one wheel, and I bent the subframe. I bent an A-arm. We also had to replace. I broke the motor mounts. But then, so the story gets better. I called up Case, and I was like, Case, come, I need you to, was it Case or
No, it was me.
Lon?
I was there.
It was you? I wasn't sure if you had your license at the time. So, okay, so I called Case, and he came and rescued me with Griff's IDI.
When has that ever kept us from driving?
We were a little better than you guys.
Nope, I disagree.
Okay, I'll agree. I did drive to the church all the time without my license, but
I drove all the time.
I think Case was probably the best. He probably didn't drive. He drove the least. But Case came and rescued me and towed me back. We put the spare tire on this car with a broken control arm, and we got all the way back to the house, which is probably 5 or 6 miles.
I don't know how we made it that far, Baron.
Yeah, I have no idea. And the
Guardian Angels again.
And the trailer, I don't know where the green trailer was at this time. It probably was loaded full of crap, and that's why we couldn't use it. So, yeah, I'm getting limped back to the house and somehow made it. But I believe out of all of the Jags that have been wrecked, I am the only one that totally repaired the car. When I was done fixing it and went on my mission, it was as good as it was when I wrecked it.
I thought it, well, yeah, you're probably right.
No,
But I thought
it was great.
it was, were you on your mission when Sheree and I met?
No, you guys met. You guys got married in 2007.
Yeah. But we met in 06.
Yeah.
When were you on your mission?
I was on my mission in 2010 to 2012.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I wrecked this car 3 months before I went on my mission. So my next paychecks went to paying off this car, but I put only subframe in it. I mean, so that at least I can say that I'm the only one that's fixed any of the Jags. So then I think it's up to Case's story where he totally destroys all of the work that I did.
Sure do. Yeah, so Baron leaves on his mission, and this is right before Christmas of that same year, I believe. I don't even know where I'm going at this point. I just take Mom's Jag, and the truth of it is, I was getting onto the freeway, and there was a guy. I was in the far left-hand lane to get on the freeway, and there was a guy in some sports car that was in the inner side left-hand turn lane to get on the freeway. And I was like, screw this guy. I'm way cooler than him. I'm in a supercharged V8 Jaguar. I'm going to kill him off this line. And me being just an idiot teenager, not knowing how to overcorrect, drifting around a corner, I ended up putting this thing right into the guardrail, getting on the freeway. Just nailed it. Bent the hood, bent the fender up. I don't think I ruined the rims or anything, but I definitely ruined the subframe, A-arm. It was bad.
And this was Mom's second British Racing Green
It was
Jag.
I would say, her absolute favorite Jaguar she's owned.
Yes.
And so I am.
Yep.
I went and picked it up with Dad.
This
San
car was
Francisco.
That was the fastest I've ever been. You and I did 155 miles an hour in it.
Like I said, a very fast car, obviously. And so it was way too much for a stupid 17-year-old kid. So I ended up limping it back home because I was only 3 miles down or 2 miles down the road. And so my dad comes out and looks at it. He's like, you know what? The body's shot on this thing now. We're never going to be able to fix it. So Dad ends up buying a Vandam Plaza, which is like the high end of Jaguar, if anyone knows or doesn't know that.
It's your interior, isn't it?
Interior, and it's longer,
Yes,
I believe.
it is the L, yes.
It was a beautiful car, but the motor was shot in it. So that's why we got it for super cheap, and we're going to do this whole body swap on it. Or engine swap, I apologize.
Engine swap.
And that was the winter that Lonnon knocked some sense into me.
I didn't knock it into you. I just pushed it into you.
Put the fear of God into you. That's what
That
you did.
is correct, and then we'll have to leave that for another day. But yeah, that's how I wrecked Mom's Jag. But it never got fixed. We'll end with that. We never got the motor swap done. We ended up selling the Vandam Plaza.
So why not? It's not the Plaza. It's Vanden Pla.
Pla. Yeah, you don't say the S. It's French.
Well, excuse
It's like
me.
for Illinois.
Like Le Mans.
Because I
Okay,
was working.
Boise.
The reason why it didn't happen.
Boise.
It's Boise.
And
I was on my
Diesel.
mission.
Baron was on his mission. I was working a full-time job plus all of the other side work that I was doing on side of that. So it was
I was in Pahrump.
Baron and it was Case and Dad trying to do this swap, which was a little bit laughable at that time.
Yes, because me and Dad
Yeah.
were not
At
good.
odds all the time.
Well, and he had cancer.
Oh yeah, that's right. When we found out Dad had cancer for the first time.
That and Case was unreasonable.
100%.
Absolutely.
100% unreasonable. Like I was an
Unreasonable.
absolute. If you want to talk about bad teenage years,
A-hole?
I was the epitome of bad teenager.
Well, and we love Dad, but come on, it's not like Dad's the easiest person to work with.
Oh, true.
I mean, it's Dad's way or the highway, period. There's no other anything. It's Dad's way or the highway, and if you don't like it, then it doesn't matter because you still have to do the work.
You just kicked Dad out of the garage like Griff did.
I
Oh,
just-
absolutely.
I didn't
Getting
kick him
Dad-
out of the garage. He didn't. I would go. That was most of my stuff that I learned was when Dad was on methadone, and so I figured out how to work on cars basically by myself, and just did it all myself. Yes, Dad would occasionally come in and help. And to be honest, actually, I didn't have nearly the arguments that any of you did, including probably from my side, Baron was the worst with Dad.
Absolutely.
Can second the motion.
Baron was the worst what?
With Dad. Dad and Baron butted heads worse than any other child and Dad.
Really?
Short of maybe Skylar.
Yes. Baron, it didn't matter whether Baron was wrong, right, yellow, black, it didn't matter. Baron was always in a fight with Dad some way or another.
They were constantly, both of them, constantly pushing each other's buttons. I mean, like, if Baron and Dad were in the garage, you might as well just expect a storm rage out. Baron's going to go for a 40-mile walk fight.
Yeah, it was
Yes.
just a crazy teenage.
I didn't know
years.
that.
Yeah, we were all angsty teenager. I'd say like
That was me when I worked for Dad. Man, I hated working for Dad. And that's why I left, because I'd rather have a dad than a boss. And that was the problem with Dad is he couldn't leave work alone if you worked for him. It was always work, and I could get a boss anywhere. I'd rather have a dad.
And I never had that problem. Like, I guess that the only time I really worked with Dad was eco, and I always had another job that I was doing. I always worked for AutoZone between that whole time too. And so I guess I never dealt with Dad that way.
Yeah, but let's be honest. Did you actually work for Dad when we were doing eco, or did you work for me?
It was Dad.
I would-
Dad
Here
was
was the
the
problem
one
with Dad.
telling me this everything.
Okay,
Dad was not really there that
Here-
often, though. I was
here
the one
was the
running
problem with
most of
Dad
it.
that I hated. Okay, we were all on salary. We were expected to be there at 8 a.m. We were expected not to leave until 5. Well, Dad wouldn't show up until 3 and keep us there until 1 or 2 in the morning. And then guess who was still expected to be there at 8 o'clock in the morning? We were. Well, we were, and then he'd come in at 3 or 4 o'clock again, and we'd end up there till midnight or 1 o'clock again. And that's what I hated.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. Okay, anyway, let's get back into cars. So I think that's all of the Jag stories. Now that we've kind of completely left Jason out, let's move over to Jason. Let him talk about a couple of his, maybe one, and then we'll move on to somebody else. I could probably go to my only other one that I have.
Sure. So mine also involves wrecking my mother's car. The first one I'm going to share.
That's awesome. I didn't realize it was your mom's car.
Yes, it was. So it was it was actually case before you were born, because you were born in October of 91, correct?
yes, that's really scary to think about.
So my first wreck was in July of 1991. I had my license for about 3 months, and I was taking a friend of mine. We were going to go play putt-putt or something, and I was driving my mom's first ever brand new car. It was the first car she had ever bought new off the lot. It was a 1990 Chevy Cavalier, 91 Chevy Cavalier.
At least it wasn't
and-
anything special.
No, not at all.
Cavaliers
it
were
was special.
cool.
Was it not a Z24?
Are you kidding? It was as base could get. The only thing it had as options were it had power
8-track.
windows. No, not quite that old. Had power windows and AC and an automatic. That was the other option, because she could drive a stick, but holy cow, she shouldn't. I'll share that story later on, actually. So anyway, I'd only been driving 3 months or so. Unlike the rest of my brothers, I was not allowed to drive before I had my learner's permit, because I grew up on the East Coast where they really frown on that kind of stuff.
Oh, they totally frowned on it where we were at. Well, maybe. Like, most of the cops, they didn't care.
Exactly.
I mean, to be honest
Yes.
with you. If you got pulled over,
You were
then,
screwed.
then yeah, you were screwed.
Usually
but,
it was no
I
insurance.
mean, we were all big enough that we didn't look like we wouldn't have had our
That's not
license
true.
anyway.
I started at 4 years old.
In a parade. Okay, anyway, go ahead,
So
Jason.
I grew up in Virginia, and in Virginia, if you got caught driving without a license, you were not allowed to get a license until you turned 18. So that was a pretty good threat. So yeah, anyway, hadn't been driving that long, and I missed my turn, so I turned into a parking lot between two buildings to turn around, and lack of experience, didn't look at what I was turning into. Trying to figure out how to get back out. So when I went to pull back out, I was blocked by two walls, looking left and right. So when I was trying to look out the car and figure out if there was traffic coming, I couldn't see. So I had to pull out a little bit in order to see. And when I pulled out a little bit, there was a guy coming along in traffic who thought I was pulling out. So he swerved into the other lane, realized there was a car there, swerved back, overcorrected, and ripped the front end of my mom's car off. I mean, ripped all of the front end off of it off. Everything, bumper, and it was a Cavalier. So, unit body, all
was
that
that
stuff.
your fault or was that his fault?
It was officially my fault. I got the ticket for it for failure to yield. And I
You
even
were
pointed
stopped,
out,
right?
yeah, I was stopped, and I pointed out, hey, I was stopped, but they looked, and the nose of the car was out like 6 inches too far. It was out 6 inches beyond where the imaginary line would be. Like if you're thinking about the plane of where the road stops and where where the right of way begins, I was into the road. I was not in the right of way.
So here's my thing:
Gotcha.
is did they not take into account the walls? I mean, like that happens all the time here in Vegas, where they've got the line where you're supposed to stop, and they've got these walls up, and you've got to go 10 feet out in front of that line to be able to see if there's any oncoming traffic.
They didn't really. It was a cop who basically had decided once he showed up and saw what had happened that it was my fault because
It's
I was
the 17-year-old's fault.
Exactly. It was the 17-year-old's fault. And that's what it really came down to, is it was the 17-year-old's fault. And so the car was luckily still drivable. Somehow it just ripped the bodywork off, but the radiator was still fine. Had no headlights or anything. So I drove it back, and my parents were divorced. I make sure everybody understands I'm talking about my adopted parents. So I went to my dad's. My dad was living with my grandmother at the time. And I went to his house because I didn't want to go to my mom with her car. I wanted to talk to somebody first, and I went to him. And so
He wanted
came
legal
out.
advice.
That too, yeah, because he was an attorney. And so I went and talked to him, and he called my mom and said, Jason's here. He needs to talk to you about something. He had a wreck. And her response was, and this is the joke to this day, what did he do to my car? Not, how is he?
Is he okay?
It was, what did you do to my car? And so that's been our joke, and will probably forever be my joke with my mother about that. So anyway, it did not total the car or anything. She did get it repaired. It never, unfortunately, was quite the same. It was beaten up enough to where it probably deserved more coverage than it deserved. It should have gotten more coverage than it did. But she was trying to make ends meet and do the best she could. So anyway, I went to court for that with my dad representing me, and he got in there and he's like, "We're gonna explain the situation to the judge. You were trying to figure out, you had blocked vision. The guy overcorrected into you. He even admitted that he overcorrected into you. We're going to get this thrown out. Ooh, no points on my insurance, no points on my license. Insurance premium won't go up because, I'm a 17-year-old male, which means the insurance rates were already stupid high. So we go into court, and when my dad gets up and enters a plea, or was asked to enter a plea, and the judge goes, well, Mr. Clark, if your son were to plead nolo contendere and were to accept going to driving school, this would be wiped off as his record when he turns 18, and it won't get reported to the insurance company. And my dad stupidly goes, that sounds like a great idea. He should go to driver's school. So instead of getting off, which I'm pretty sure I could have gotten that thrown out, I had to go to driving school, and that driving school was actually worse for me than if I'd never gone to driving school, because I learned more bad habits out of that stupid driving school than anything else. So my mom got that car fixed. Within 2 weeks of that wreck, she had found the money to buy me my first car, which was a 1984 Ford Escort 5-speed, 4-door 5-speed Escort. And
that's an awesome first car.
No, it wasn't.
Dude,
it's faster than mine.
Case, you're thinking Kazi Escort or something. I'm talking dog, slow, boxy,
80s,
like open
Slogged
headlights, 80s.
like crazy.
Oh yeah,
Still,
and it was still carbureted.
Still faster than my first car.
It doesn't. No, it was probably about the same speed. You haven't driven an Escort, and it was an Escort, not a Mercedes. Your Mercedes was far better. Trust me.
Yes. Anything is better. Now, granted, I like to keep track of the character that my cars had, and that car had character because it was a 5-speed Escort, and those were super, super rare in 1984. Like, I don't know how she found it, but she found it, and she tried to teach me how to drive a stick twice for about 5 minutes each, and then she finally gave up and got my Uncle Sam to teach me how to drive stick, and I could drive a stick within an hour with him. and have been able to drive one ever since and never had a problem. Whereas she burns out clutches in anything she gets in because she rides the clutch like crazy.
Gotcha.
So that's my first wreck. I have 2 more wreck stories I'll share later on. One about the Escort, and then one about another car later on.
All right, so I've got one more story for you guys. I think we're running out of time here, so I think we'll do one, and then we'll do. Case I think has another one. He'll do. Well, to be continued
because we do have
for
quite a few other
next
stories
week.
to continue still, and it just amazes me how many accidents we've actually all gotten into.
Right. So here's my only other one I've ever been in. I was up in Sun Valley area with my wife, doing something for Dad, if I remember correctly, and I was driving my wife. It was my girlfriend at the time, but now she's my wife. But it was her Dodge Neon, and this is back when I had a Nokia 6100. It's sitting on my lap, and it fell between the seats. Well, I reached down to grab it, and the guy in front of us was in a Ford F350 crew cab, 97, probably right around there, the OBS style, and he slams on his brake to make a turn. Well, I didn't see it in time, and I slam on my brakes, and I hit and I crunch her front hood underneath his bumper. And then I follow the guy. The guy didn't stop. He just keeps driving down the road. So I follow him. I'm honking my horn. I'm flashing my headlights. Finally, he pulls over, and I'm like, I hit you. I want to make sure that, we can swap insurances, make sure this is all right. And he's like, he comes back and looks at the back of his truck and goes, my truck's fine. So do you really want to swap? I was like, as long as you're okay with it. No. He's like, to be honest with you, I just thought one of my kids kicked the back of my seat.
Wow.
So yeah, so that was my one and only other wreck I've ever been in.
That's pretty good there, Lonnon. I mean, 2 accidents, that's not bad at all. Yeah, I was going through my list. I have, I think, 5 or 6. I was a dumb teenager, let's put it that way.
Now, so if it doesn't count that I didn't have my license on the first one, technically it's only 1 wreck.
Well, lucky you, sir.
All right, Case.
I don't have many car. I have lots of motorcycle.
Yeah, we'll have to get into that onto another episode. Back when Ashley and I were I think we were engaged at the time, we went and got sushi with my family, and I had my 98 Outback, my first one, and
which sadly no longer exists.
Actually, that was my second one, but yes, that no longer exists either.
Oh, that would be thanks to my son.
Thanks, Owen.
What was that sushi bomb?
No, Island Sushi is where we went that night. Yeah. So,
okay.
Yeah, so we got onto the 215 right off of Eastern, or on Eastern on a 215, and there was construction on the road that I didn't know about. And my wife, just being silly, decided to flash herself at me, and I got a little bit distracted, obviously, and I end up rear-ending a truck and ended up blowing out my driver's side blinker and headlight in this car. So, yeah, y'all folks out there, pay attention, not to your woman, pay attention to the road.
She flashed her headlights at you?
Sure, we can call them headlights, that's fine.
Her personal headlights.
I remember
high beams.
You getting in that accident. I think I called you right after it happened. And this is the first time hearing as of to the why.
Yeah,
that happened.
I've never even
kept
heard
it
of this
hush because it was really embarrassing.
I'm amazed she said you could tell it.
More so
Yes.
for her than you, I'm thinking.
Yes.
I
she
agree
gave
with
me
that.
permission tonight, so no one get mad at me. She told me I could tell this story, but yeah, it was a definitely.
It had to be night.
No,
it couldn't be next week.
I had to put it out there.
He had a
You had a day
24-hour
pass.
go ahead.
Yep,
That
you
was
had
it.
a day pass.
So
Yet another reason to love Ashley even more.
I actually have one similar to that too.
What?
Yeah.
Do you now?
Yes.
Okay.
I think we have to get that one this week, don't we?
Yeah, might as well get that one. Yep. Let's go with that one. We'll get the flashing stories or, out of the way.
So I was in Dad's F350 and at my time with my girlfriend, but now my wife, Annika,
You guys are bad.
I know.
Yes,
Wait.
We are bad.
The dually?
Yes.
The white dually?
And
that was a
and
good
then
truck.
so we were in traffic going to a concert for her brother, and we were at a stoplight and we started to make out while we were at the stoplight, and the car started to roll in front of me, and so I was still kind of watching the road while not, and started to roll right at Eastern in the airport, and so most of you will know where that's at, and it's a fairly busy intersection. Well, the lady slammed on her brakes because I was in the turn lane, and so they stopped to go in the turn lane, didn't slam her brakes, but stopped, and I rolled into her Cadillac, and hit her. And so we'll get out of the car and we're talking, and she's like, "Oh, I'm headed to the same concert. My grandson's there." And she's like, she looks at the damage. She's like, "Well, honestly, I got rear-ended 15 minutes before this, so I don't know if it was your accident or this or the one that just happened. So don't even worry about it. I'm already late, and so are you. So just go ahead."
Wow. Jeez Louise.
You lucky
Are
dog.
you kidding me?
It was a love tap. It really was. It just scratched the bumper, and it had just. I mean,
oh, so that's what they call it now.
yeah.
That's what she said.
Well, yeah. That's my. I don't even really. I claim it as an accident. It definitely was, but it wasn't like nothing happened past that.
You are so
lucky.
lucky.
Let me just say that as Jensens, we were all, I think, pretty good kids. Like, we didn't get into a ton of trouble. We didn't go out partying and stuff, but women are kryptonite.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Especially horny women. So if
Especially,
you have your children on,
except
I
for Baron.
apologize.
yeah, Baron was good.
Good Baron.
Baron's the exception.
Good Baron.
Tashi
Jason was good.
and,
Oh,
and
and Sarah.
Sherry.
I
was good.
also wrecked. I scraped up the back of that excursion because of a woman.
There's
But-
Jenny.
And,
That was
and a
Jenny.
Jag. Those are my two wreck headache. But
Jason and Baron were good. But
I never wrecked a car because of a woman. I'll just say that.
Kryptonite.
There's still
I
time.
didn't either.
Good point. Honey, you want to go for a drive?
All right, guys. Well, I think that's all the time we have for tonight, and we'll continue this rec session later next week. You'll be able to hear the rest of some of these stories. Not so much for me. I'll probably be commentating on a whole bunch of them that I didn't even know about. I know Baron's got a ton left. I know Casey's got a ton left. We're gonna get Kyler back on here. He's got a couple he's gonna add to it. Dane's got maybe one or two
I got
left,
one
and Griff's got a few as well.
And I got a
one.
couple.
So it was really good seeing you guys all. Again, like Case said, if you'd like to shoot us an email at kinguglycrew.com or at kinguglycrew@gmail.com. Send us what you might want us to talk about. And if you have any questions or comments, make sure you do so on Spotify or Anchor or anywhere like that. Friend us, follow us on Facebook or Instagram, and stay ugly.